Okay, we're getting towards the end of the human resource strategies. So we're going to look at global strategies. Quick overview, globalization has obviously led to an increase in the amount of competition. We can buy and sell products all over the world. Advances in technology have allowed this. It's also increased the complexity of human resource management. There is a high demand for low-cost labour in regions of lower wage nations. Okay, so locations. China, India and the Philippines are the most popular locations for outsourcing. In addition to labour costs, issues including business risk, service quality, infrastructure, business regulations, political stability and language skills are important influences on the choice of location for offshoring and outsourcing. So labour costs, minimum wages here in Australia are what they are. Those same minimum wages don't necessarily apply to some overseas countries. Some overseas countries may not even have an actual set minimum wage. So the cost of employing people in these foreign countries can be a lot cheaper for the business. Business regulations, they could be more relaxed than they are here. For example, in Australia, there are set target amounts for amounts of waste that can be produced, so possibly those same restrictions don't exist in other countries. Political stability, businesses want to establish their outposts in countries that aren't obviously in the middle of a war or dicey political circumstances. Language, well, having people able to speak English, I guess, is helpful for some particular things like, oh my God, I forgot the word, call centres. Okay. So there are a number of different staffing approaches when you're looking at looking at global issues. There's polycentric. This is where polycentric uses host country staffing with parent country staff in corporate management at its headquarters. Okay, yeah, I know this all sounds a little bit tricky. I will read through them all. The clip that is attached is actually really, really useful in explaining it in a way that you can understand because you get to see little pictures and people moving around. So please go back and watch the videos. Again, just a reminder, you need to access the PowerPoint in Google Classroom in order to watch the videos. You can't click on this video. Okay, geocentric uses staff with the most appropriate skill set for a particular role and location and builds a pool of managers with global experience. And ethnocentric uses parent country staff in its business. This may limit its ability to interact with customers and learn from overseas markets. So just kind of quickly in a nutshell, polycentric, okay, if a business has offices in another country or production set up in another country, they are using people from that country. Okay, the parent country staff are in corporate management at its headquarters. So let's say, for example, Coca-Cola, main offices are in America. That's main offices are fully staffed by Americans. They have centres in, let's say, somewhere in Asia. And in Asia, obviously, they're using people from that country, the host country. Geocentric staff with the most appropriate skill set. Basically, they just draw the best people from wherever. It doesn't really matter what country they're set up in. They're using the best people available. And ethnocentric, using parent country staff in its business. So let's say, I don't know, Robin's Cafe went global and she had cafes, let's say, France, rather than having French staff, she would use people from Bulladilla or Australia to manage and run her businesses overseas. Okay, again, watch the video. Okay, this is, I think, our final strategy. So looking at workplace disputes. So an industrial dispute is a disagreement over an issue or group of issues between an employer and its employees, which results in employees ceasing work. Okay, the clip attached here is looking at Jetstar staff going on strike. The strike refers to situations in which workers withdraw their labour. Why would employees use strike action as a tactic in workplace disputes? Why would they? Because if they're not doing their job, the business is not functioning. If the business is not functioning, the business is not making money. So employees who strike feel that it is pressuring their employers to agree to whatever their particular demands are. Okay, another version of a workplace dispute other than strikes is something called a lockdown. So a lockout. Lockdown that's happened at schools. Okay, a lockout occurs when employers close the entrance to a workplace and refuse admission to the workers. So here the employers are saying, well, if you don't want to agree with the way we want things, then you can't come in and work, so we're not going to have to pay you. Causes of disputes. Remuneration, so the amount of money people are receiving. Employment conditions, job security issues, concerns over health and safety, management's policies, particular union issues that could be going on, and also political or social protests can cause disputes in the workplace. Okay, the key stakeholders and their role in resolving workplace disputes. Now, I had to shrink this a little bit more than I would have liked to, so my head didn't get in the way. So let me just look at that nice big one in your work booklet to go through them. Okay, so key stakeholders and their role in resolving workplace disputes. Let's start with the governments. Okay, governments provide the institutions, policy and legislative framework for the resolution of conflict, and they investigate breaches of legislation. Employer associations provide information and support to employers. They assist in negotiations with unions and represent employers in tribunals. Employers and managers use grievance procedures and negotiate agreements with employees to resolve disputes. Line managers are playing a much greater role today in resolving disputes. In other words, let's sort it out in-house before it turns into something big and ugly. Employees use grievance procedures and negotiate agreements with employers, with or without unions, on a collective or individual basis. Trade unions represent employees in disputes from the shop floor to the national level. They negotiate with management, employers and associations and represent the employees in tribunals. Anti-discrimination boards, these are state boards, not federal. They work closely with the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission to ensure that disputes about discrimination on the basis of age, colour, sex, disability, criminal record, political opinion, race or religion in the workplace are resolved through the provision of information, investigation and conciliation. Can refer cases to the Administrative Review Tribunal for determination. Civil courts. This is federal court and state supreme courts. They enforce legislation and handle any common law actions. Industrial tribunals and Fair Work Australia. They interpret legislation, that's the laws, make and supervise awards and agreements, provide conciliation and arbitration for the resolution of disputes and unfair dismissal claims. And finally, the Human Rights Commission, which is a federal organisation. They monitor and review how legislation relating to human rights is implemented. It can investigate and conciliate complaints about discrimination in employment opportunities or a person's treatment in the workplace. Refers complaints of sex discrimination in awards and agreements for determination to the federal court. Okay, a whole bunch of people can be involved in workplace disputes. So, grievance procedures. Yep, okay, I used the term grievance procedures quite a bit when I just read through that diagram that you have in your books. So what are they? So when it comes to resolving workplace dispute, there are particular grievance procedures that are out there. So grievance procedures are formal procedures, generally written into an award or agreement, that state agreed processes to resolve disputes in the workplace. There are generally 3 steps in grievance procedures. They are negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. Okay, let's look at what they are. Negotiation. Negotiation involves discussions only between the disputing parties, so the employer and the union, for example, which may result in a compromise and a formal or informal agreement. The advantages of things being handled in the negotiation stage is that it is a low cost and minimal time is involved as there's no courts. Disadvantages of it could be that there is no guarantee of an outcome, as a negotiation is not legally binding. So, for example, we're just going to have a look at Qantas as we look at these different grievance procedures. So Qantas senior management and the Transport Workers Union first met informally in 2010 to discuss the Qantas plan to outsource some jobs overseas. No agreement was reached. So they went through the negotiation phase, nothing came out of it. Okay, the next step is mediation. It's sometimes referred to as conciliation. It's good to know both of these terms. So mediation is the confidential discussion of issues in an informal environment in the presence of a neutral, objective third party. So again, you'll have the employer and the unions sitting down discussing issues, but there is a third party person there who listens to both sides to help them to come up with some kind of an agreement. So advantages of this is that an independent third party is likely to be trusted by both sides, and this is much less costly than going through a court case. Disadvantage, still no guarantee of an outcome, as mediation is not legally binding unless both parties sign a contract agreeing to an outcome. So back to our Qantas example. Former New South Wales judge Sir Lawrence Street mediated a meeting between Qantas senior management and the TWU in late 2010. No outcome was agreed to. Next step. Courts and tribunals, also sometimes called arbitration. Again, it's good to know all of these terms. So an independent third party such as a judge makes a legally binding decision that must be followed. So again, you've got your employer, you've got your union group, still discussing their issues, but this time the third party person is somebody who can say, okay, I've listened to both sides, this is what's going to happen, and it is a legally binding decision. So both sides have to then follow whatever that third party person has said should happen. So advantage, it brings a clear end to a workplace dispute. Disadvantage, there are large costs and times involved. Hiring lawyers, attending court also can lead to some bad publicity. So back to Qantas. Using the powers of the Fair Work Act of 2009, the federal government forced Qantas and the TWU to attend the Fair Work Tribunal in October 2011 after Qantas grounded its entire fleet. The tribunal ordered all industrial action, lockouts and strikes to cease. A final decision about outsourcing was made in 2012 in favour of Qantas, allowing them to outsource human relations. Okay, this one requires you to have a think. So you're looking at the benefits and costs of workplace disputes. What do you think would be some potential costs and benefits? Fill in the table. So I'm asking you, okay, so when it comes to money, finances, what is a benefit that could come out of a workplace dispute and what is a possible cost? Now, you can look at these from either side. You could have financial costs for the business and financial benefits for the employees, or financial benefits for the employees, financial costs for the employees. Just make sure that you indicate whether you're talking about the employer or the employees, okay, when you're saying whether it's a benefit or a cost. So financial costs, benefits and costs, personal benefits and costs, social, so social meaning wider community Okay, so how will they benefit, or how will they be disadvantaged, or the costs of workplace disputes occurring? Politically, what could be some benefits or costs? Remembering that governments can be involved in these things. And internationally, so how can a workplace dispute benefit or cost a business? Probably looking more at a business rather than an employee level for this one. For the international, like what kind of effects could that have? Good luck. Okay, so you've now got 10 questions to answer as a little bit of a review. So list 6 stakeholders in human resources. Which human resource stakeholders represent employees? Which represent employers? Name the main workplace law in Australia. I've said it about a million times. Identify the legal document which lists the workplace conditions for an entire industry. Name the legal document which lists the workplace conditions for one specific business. List the 4 processes of human resources. Which HR strategy involves selecting workers based on their personality rather than skills? Name one type of monetary reward. And what is the difference between ethno and geocentric staff supply? Okay, not looking for really long answers, as you'll notice from your workbook. They're all relatively short. It looks like I might have ditched one of those questions. Let's see. Question 1, question 2 are the same. Sorry about this. 3, 4, 5, yep, 6, 7, yep, 8. I ditched question 8 in your work booklet. You won't have to worry about that one. So there's only 9 questions there in your work booklet. The one which needs the longest answer is the last one, about the difference between ethno and geocentric staff. The rest of them are just 1 line or 2 lines, because I'm just asking you just very briefly just to go back and check that you're remembering some of the things. And lastly for today, HSC question. Ubud Proprietary Limited is an Australian-owned furniture company. Management have recently changed the work practices without employee consultation. The union is planning to conduct an industrial campaign in the next few weeks to challenge this decision. Recommend 2 possible dispute resolution processes for Ubud Proprietary Limited. Okay, 6 marks. So what am I looking for here? I'm probably looking for you to be able to name 2 types of dispute resolution processes, briefly explain how those dispute resolution processes actually work, and thirdly, for each process, how would that apply to the particular situation? Okay, if you are given a scenario, as you're given here about Ubud Proprietary Limited, you really need to make sure that you also use your answer to see how the people in the scenario, or the business in the scenario, would use whatever it is you're talking about. So in this case, name a dispute resolution process. How does it work? How would it work for Ubud? That's 1. That's 3 marks. Then name your second dispute resolution process. How does it work? How would it apply to Ubud? All right, guys. See you later.